I'll call this meeting of the Johnson City City Commission to order for this Thursday, December the 1st. We're meeting at 6 p.m. in the Commission chambers of the Municipal and Safety Building. And with the meeting called to order, I will invite Pastor Chauncey Slater to bring our invocation, if you'll all please stand.
Amen. Thank you all for having me this evening. Let us go to the Lord in prayer at this time. Father God, first of all, we thank you for this wonderful day. We thank you for getting us here safely to this place, Lord. We thank you for allowing us to see the 12th month of this year, Lord. Right now, Lord, we speak right now, Lord, that this meeting runs smoothly and you continue to lead these leaders, Lord, that they lead us in the way that you need for us to go, Lord. And once again, we thank you for each and every family that's represented here, Lord, and we thank you for all of your many blessings. It's in your Son, Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. If you'll stay standing and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commission, your first order of business, or your next order of business, is item 3.1, to consider approval of the minutes for the regularly scheduled City Commission meeting held on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022.
Our modifications or a motion?
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Commissioners, item number 3.2 is to consider approval of the minutes for the special call City Commission meeting held on Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022.
Move for approval?
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Abstain.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of proclamations, resolutions, and presentation. Item 4.1 is presentation of proclamation recognizing 5-6 junior topper football team on the remarkable season by winning the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Come on down.
Go, guys.
What's lacking in height is made up for in quantity. Good-looking crew.
Yeah.
Come on in.
Show them they can see themselves on TV right up here. Yeah.
He's doing his muscles.
There you go. Okay. So is that Jackson on the end? That is Daxton, okay. All right, well, I've got a proclamation for you all. We're very proud of your accomplishments and for your coaches as well. So let me read this just a moment. Whereas led by Coach Dexter Parton, Grant Goforth, Peyton Atkins, Julius Bowling, and Custodio Bristow, the Junior Toppers football team achieved notable success during their 2022 season, finishing as Super Bowl champions for the Mighty Might division of the Watauga Junior Athletics League. And whereas the team finished the season undefeated and was comprised of 27 boys from 11 different schools, including every elementary school in the city of Johnson City. And whereas sportsmanship, integrity, and character were demonstrated by Cash Absalom, Daxton Atkins, Keegan Arnold, Maverick Bear, Julius Bowling, Zamari Bowling, Hezekiah Brady, Vincent Brito, Colton Clay, Stylus DeBusque, Ezra Gilbert, Crew Goforth, Nolan Graham, Brantley Hyatt, Anthony Johnson, Messiah LaFrance, Christopher Madison, Miles Mitchell, Santana Murray, Cameron Osborne, Cameron Patton, Copeland Powell, Porter Reed, Larry Reifenberg, James Sandos, Rhett Sandos, and Hudson Willis. Now, therefore, I, Joe Wise, the mayor of the city of Johnson City, do hereby congratulate the 2022 5-6 Junior Toppers football team on a remarkable season during which they successfully and admirably represented our area on the stage, and we are proud of each of you. So congratulations. This will take a minute. Be crude. That's the most we've ever had.
Congratulations, coaches.
Yeah.
Thank you. Takes a lot of patience. Just saying from a parent. At that age, yeah. But so much fun.
So, JT, are you wanting to get a picture?
Let's all get a picture with
Yeah,
them here.
we'll get that.
Yeah.
In the back, Bill. Sorry, squeeze them in. Squeeze them in.
Hey, Ezra, go down there and stand in front of Jesus. Follow me. Follow me.
Yeah, if you'll close the folios, you can hold them up just in front of you, but not in front of your faces. If the camera can't see your face, it's not really a good picture. So, yeah, come, Mr. Adkins, back this way.
There you go.
Come on down. Come on down, Ray. I can't get out of the picture. Get in there. Yeah, I'll just get in.
Great, can everybody see me?
Yeah. Put your folder down. Put your folder down. Pretend like you're in a huddle.
All right, cheeseburgers.
I don't need
Coach, thank y'all again.
Great seeing you.
Good job.
Glad they're playing.
Thank
That's
you.
good. See ya.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see you.
Mayor, if you want to stay down there, our next order of business is a presentation of retirement resolution to Charlie Stahl.
Oh. That's right. Where's your football, Charlie?
Are you sure you want to do this? All right, so Charlie, the resolution on your retirement. Whereas Charles Charlie Stahl began his career over 20 years of service with the city of Johnson City as a budget assistant in 1983 while he was a graduate student at East Tennessee State University. Whereas upon earning his master's of city management degree, Charlie was promoted to the city's first budget director, a position he held from 1984 to 1988, earning the city the Government Finance Officer Association Award for distinguished budget presentation during his tenure. And whereas Charlie left the city to pursue opportunities in Bluefield, West Virginia, and the city of Elizabethton, where he was selected as the 2002 Tennessee City Manager of the Year, he returned to Johnson City in 2006 as Assistant City Manager. And whereas he has spent the past 16 consecutive years actively involved in numerous projects, including the sports complex expansion at Wing Deer Park, the acquisition of the Tweetsy Trail, the acquisition of the Kiefhofer Farm, installation and replacement of turf and field lighting at Kermit-Tipton Stadium, and a number of improvements to the Winged Deer Park Lakefront, TVA Credit Union Ballpark, Pine Oaks Golf Course, Kiwanis Park, and Freedom Hall Civic Center renovation. That is a really long sentence. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners, upon his retirement from the City of Johnson City, officially commends Charlie Stahl for his service to the organization, our community, and our citizens. So.
I have a brief statement. I didn't bring the long speech, but I have, as you pointed out, Mayor, worked for the city for a total of 20 years, and I've worked here on 3 different occasions. And some of the folks in this room, James Ellis, Phil Pinzola, Tom Witherspoon, come to mind. They were here when I started way back when, and to me, people ask me, well, you've worked for the city 3 different times. Well, there's a reason, and the reason is Johnson City is a great community to live in. It's a great place to work, and what makes this place, this city, a great place to work is its employees. We have some fabulous city employees in every department. We're unique in many ways. We cannot, work just 8 to 5. Our departments, as you know, are 24 hours a day, in some cases 7 days a week, whether they're emergency services, they could be recreation services, public works, water, sewer, internal services, the list goes on. So, we are a growing city, and I'm proud to be a part of this over the past 16 years straight, and certainly 20 years total. I'd be remiss if not identifying and mentioning my wife Jan over there and my daughter Tori, who have supported me over the years. They've tried to keep me in line. That, as you know, that's been
Just
very
as we've tried to.
right. That's very it's very difficult duty, but they've tried their best, and I appreciate their love and support. But I also want to just thank each member of the City Commission, you, Mayor. I've been under probably 15 mayors since 1983, beginning with Tom McKee, and so that's a long time. Numerous city commissioners, and also had the privilege and honor of working under 4 city managers. I was hired by City Manager Charles Tyson as a graduate student intern back in 1983, and then his assistant city manager, John Campbell, was promoted to city manager and appointed me to be the first city's budget director, and I worked under him for a number of years. Left, as you pointed out, and came back when City Manager Pete Peterson brought me back to be in my current position as Assistant City Manager. And I was glad to stay to see Kathy here on board, and I know she's probably rolled her eyes a couple times after talking with me about a few topics, but she rose to the occasion and tolerated me, and I was glad to at least be a part of your administration for the past 12 months. And I think, I'll say this, when I was budget director, we had in our budget a slogan that was adopted from the Chamber of Commerce here, and it said, "Out front and moving ahead." And it never was really adopted by the city government, but I really believe that that title, "Out front and moving ahead," is as applicable today as it ever has been, because now it's more important than ever that not only Johnson City, which is out front and moving ahead, that we manage that, and we are trying to get our arms around, managing the growth for the greater good of the community. And there was another statement that I remember when City Manager Tyson brought me on board. Every department head, he gave a little frame plaque to, and the frame plaque said, "There's no limit to what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit for it." And that statement, I'm sure, was co-opted from some other source, but is as applicable today here in Johnson City as any statement, because if you don't work together, you can't accomplish what you can if you do work together. So, but I want to thank the city employees of the city, our elected and appointed officials, my fellow department heads, And it's been a great run, and thank you so much. Appreciate you all.
Mayor, the next item of business is recognition and presentation of challenge coins for 4 Johnson City officers who assisted the Department of Navy's Criminal Investigative Services.
This is addressed from the Department of the Navy to our own Chief Turner in reference to the assistance of the Johnson City Police Department provided NCISRA Charleston on June 15, 2022 with locating Petty Officer Javon, oh boy. Okay, it's a lot of consonants. We would like to thank you and your 4 officers by presenting you with your office's challenge coins. I'm sorry, with presenting you with our office's challenge coins, the devotion to duty of Sergeants Corey Shown, Officer Adam Lunsford, Officer Cody Tester, and Officer Cameron Mathis, and their unwavering compassion for this sailor surely not only saved his life, but also left him with a positive impression of law enforcement. NCIS sincerely thanks you and your officers for your commitment and assistance. We thank you, gentlemen, each. And Chief, do you want to hand those out? Want to get one picture while we're all still here? Kathy, you want to get on up here?
Everybody shift to your right.
Thank you, John.
Congratulations.
Commission, your next order of business is to consider the consent agenda.
Okay. I guess we'll start with Commissioner Murphy.
Yes, sir.
What might you have to pull?
5.1.2.
Okay.
Sure.
Anything else?
Not right now.
Vice Mayor?
5.2.1.
All right. Commissioner Brock?
Those were my 2, but I will add 5.2.3.
I'm good. Thank you. Well, there's really only
That's
2
about
things
it.
left, so.
That's about it.
All right, well, we'll maybe pull them in order. 5.1.2, Commissioner Murphy, this is on consider an extension of the agreement of use of property known as Beeson Hall located at 403 Harrison Street. I'm assuming, is that a
That's a Charlie.
James Ellis or a
No,
Charlie?
that'd be me. Oh.
Okay.
Oh, that's easy. You don't have to go
That's
up.
pretty easy. As you all are aware, 2 years ago, you agreed to allow the VA museum, the healthcare museum, to store some product and some of their material in the Beeson Hall. And so they have been looking for a new place to relocate so they can display it. It's not displayed at Beeson Hall, it's just stored there. And they've asked for another extension to do that while they're trying to get their board together. They've been working on a lot of options. Nothing's really come to fruition for them yet, and so we agreed to bring to you all for consideration extending that for another year.
Are there other questions?
Never asked the first one, but I'll
Oh, I'm
go ahead
sorry.
and pose one.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Trivett, for the explanation. Question that I had was in reference to the use of this facility in the past. If I remember correctly, there was a local community boxing effort to get troubled youth off the street, and that was taken from the community, and this group has been looking for a place to practice those same efforts. And so, so I guess that is a question. Is that the same place?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess the question is it possible that this effort could obtain use of this property in the future? There may be maybe take some commission involvement, but if we're using a piece of property for storage, is there other options to provide this organization storage rather than Beeson Hall, which, I mean, could suffice not only this effort, but other efforts that I'm aware of in the community? I'm not sure if we are in the business to provide storage for organizations when you have multiple storage options that are popping up all over the city. I'm just got some inquiries. I just wanted to have that conversation because I am aware of a local effort who has need of Beeson Hall. I'm aware of other local efforts who have need of facilities that are trying to get troubled youth off the street. And so, you know, if you weigh those options, I think to better utilize a facility for storage, there are storage businesses in the city that can provide what they're looking for. Right now, we just got troubled youth that need space.
And we definitely are aware of that. And when they first approached us from the VA, and Congressman Rowe was the one who reached out to us because they were getting ready to remodel their existing space and needed a place just to store material till they could find a place. Beeson Hall was not being utilized at the time. It was empty. There were some other things stored up there, but no one was using that space at the time. But since then, you know, we did a 2-year agreement with them. But since that time, the Park and Rec Director, James Ellis, and I have even talked with Assistant City Manager Stahl about some new uses for that facility and for that space, and would like to get it used back into what it was originally being used for a few years ago. It's been a number of years since they had the boxing practice and the rounds up there, and so we would like to pursue that. I'm not saying that they need it for another year. They may be able to find them a space a lot quicker and get out of there. We just did not want to put them on such a tight timeline that maybe I had to come back and ask you all again for another extension. But I can work with them to see how quickly we can relocate them, and then work with Park and Rec to see how we can best utilize that space.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's good. 2 years to provide storage is and then now it would be 3 years.
It will.
I just know we're not in the storage business.
That's correct.
And there are efforts that need space that we can provide for the community to help troubled youth. That being said, I would feel more comfortable if we would do 6 months, not a year. Not trying to put anybody on a time constraint, but I'll be willing myself to talk to local storage facilities who are in the business for storage to help them in these times of need, rather than providing them our facility for a whole year. So those are just my concerns and how I feel.
Are there other questions on that item? Would it be advisable or agreeable to pull that for separate consideration from the balance of the consent agenda?
I think if there's a request to change the terms of it.
I would.
Okay, so why don't we pull 5.1.2 for separate consideration? So if,
We need a motion for that.
do we need a motion? We would need a motion.
I'll
for
make that motion.
The vice mayor has
And
made
I'll
a
second.
motion and a second.
I think you're just moving it.
Yeah, you're just gonna vote on it separate.
Yeah, so you don't need a
It's already
motion to
pulled
do
from the
that.
consent
It's already
agenda.
on the
Okay.
agenda, so you're just gonna relocate.
We're gonna
its
vote
order.
on it separate. Yeah, so the motion to approve the consent agenda would simply
Leave that
be
out.
contingent on that being considered separately. All right.
Correct.
Vice Mayor had 5.2.1. This is Summers Taylor. Mr. Best?
Yeah. I guess my question, we're going from 3.3 million in our budget to 5 million, and is that because of increased usage of asphalt, or is that the price of the materials that's going up that much?
The reason that we have changed that in the past, we always just said whatever was in our budget for resurfacing. However, with our new Oracle system, if you hit that number, you can't pave anymore or anything else. So in the past, the commission has approved funding for like repaving the school parking lot, and Summers Taylor held the price. Well, we wouldn't be able to do that without coming before you and readjusting this contract. So the purpose is, so like water and sewer, let's say a water line breaks, we need to repave a road, I'd have to bring back to you this contract, because once you hit that limit, you can't spend anymore. And so that's just, water and sewer utilizes this contract. For an example, our capital project there we did on Knob Creek, that's actually was paid out of capital funds, and so that's why we've raised the amount, just because the new system kind of stops you once you hit your budgeted amount.
So it's because of Oracle more than it's because of,
Yes.
it's the way we're changing doing things?
Yeah, it's the way we're changing doing
Okay.
things,
All
and
right,
and
that
it's
makes
just
sense to me.
adjusting
I'm
the
I'm
cap.
okay with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there other questions on that item? If not, Commissioner Brock had pulled the Walter A. Wood manhole frame riser contract.
So this is a water sewer, it's
It
not a
is.
public works?
That's correct.
Okay, I just assumed it was public works, and my question was, is this for new construction or replacement? And I think.
These are
because-
actually riser rings that
Right.
we would use on an existing manhole to
Right.
raise for
Okay.
paving.
So we have a lot in the city. I'll probably get more complaints about manholes that are, 4 or 5 inches, below the surface.
Justifiably so.
So I guess my hope was gonna be that we're gonna make some repairs of those.
We use the bulk of these on city paving and county paving.
Mm-hmm.
And so there will be some, if we have a ticket to work that says a manhole needs to be raised, we will go out and make that adjustment. But the
Okay.
bulk of this gets used on paving jobs.
Well, I sure would like to see us try to repair some of those.
Tell us where they're at and we'll go work on it.
Anywhere. I don't know. Other commissioners can probably
That is
chime in
somewhat
on
of a
it, too.
legacy issue.
Yeah.
It's been better in the last 5 to 10 years overall. It wasn't as good before that time period.
I still think we have opportunity.
And I
agree.
think it's just, again, to not just the commission's benefit, but even those observing the meeting, better to be specific and identify the specific manhole cover that needs to be raised than just
Or
to talk
lower.
about, or lower,
Some
but
of
to
them
talk,
are
know,
high, you
it's
bump
hard to
over.
fix what you don't necessarily have specific information on.
That's right.
Thank you.
So thank you. All right, that's all that you requested to be pulled. Is there a motion on the consent agenda with the note of potentially pulling 5.1.2?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
So a motion to approve consent less 5.1.2 in a second. If there's nothing further on the consent agenda, less the Beeson Hall item, we can call the, is that right? Okay, can we call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. So that leaves us with 5.1.2, and there was a suggestion by Commissioner Murphy about altering the term from a 12-month to a 6-month. Are you looking to make that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Well, can we have some discussion
Well,
on it?
he's going to make a motion, and then we
Okay.
can discuss the
All right.
motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we change the term.
So you'd be
term-
making a
term
motion to
agreement.
approve it as a 6-month term?
Absolutely.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a second. Now, Commissioner Hunter.
Well, I was just curious, should we just defer this until the 15th so that Randy could have better informed discussion for us about what their real timeline might be, that it might be 3 months or 6 months or whatever? Or
When I met with them, when they approached me about getting this on the agenda, I originally told them 6 months, and they were acceptable to that.
Okay, all right,
So that's kind of how we approached it the first time, was 6 months.
okay.
And Randy, there's quite a volume of
Oh,
artifacts in there, correct?
Yes, a tremendous amount of artifacts. I mean, they have one of the old iron lungs from the VA.
Yeah, I've been through the museum when it was on the VA campus.
Yes.
And so they're constructing a space, or?
No, they're trying to find a space, and it's, and they've been through some troublesome times. I mean, they were told when they first moved that the space they were going to be doing was being remodeled, and that they would have another space on the VA. That did not come through for them. Then they reached out to like ETSU to see if they could have a space there. ETSU's not participating any longer. So their board's been kind of scrambling, looking for a place for them to go, and finding a place where somebody can help them to get set up and to operate and display. They have a lot of very valuable and important
They do.
artifacts.
You know, it really brings up a further discussion just about museums in general, because we have the Railroad Museum, George L. Carter Railroad Museum, that's in the same situation. The building they're in on the ETSU campus is going to be torn down, so they have to move and find a location. And both of these establishments house our history. And I think it's something that we need to think of, how we accommodate an asset like that to our advantage. So I think it warrants some further discussion and strategy.
So there is a motion to approve a 6-month extension. Are there other comments or further deliberation? Call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor, before we move on to the next item, which is consideration of ordinance, we have our new planning director here, and he is just in attendance. He's in town looking for a place to live. This weekend, he and his wife are visiting here. Justin, if you could come up and just introduce yourself real quickly to the commission. Justin Westbrook. He is a graduate of East Carolina University and has a master's at Auburn. And he has been in numerous cities over the past 10 years in the planning department, and recently came to us from Aberdeen, North Carolina. So welcome, and we're glad you're here.
Thank y'all.
And
It's good to be here.
He had a chance to meet with staff earlier today and to kind of get to know them a little bit. So I wanted you all to put a face with a name. He starts work on December 19th.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're looking forward to it.
Good luck with that.
Glad to have you.
I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Well, we have to ask him a question now. He can't come before us. Yeah. What attracted you to Johnson City?
I think the growth. I've got a good history in other jurisdictions I've worked in, and managing and helping guide those towns. And I think Johnson City obviously is prime for it. And y'all have seen the newspaper articles as well as I have. So it doesn't seem like a job that would be boring at all, and a chance to be able to help guide where I can, where I've learned, and continue learning.
Well, welcome, and
Thank
good
you.
luck in your move.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Justin.
Absolutely.
The next order of business is item 6.1, ordinance number 4823-22. This is a second reading of rezoning number 1096, the Johnson City Eye Clinic and Surgery Center at 0 Hopewell Drive.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is not in the right place. All right. So, as Kathy said, we have the second reading of this rezone for the Johnson City Eye Clinic. Every time. I just need the keyboard. It's about 18 acres at the end of Hopewell Drive. The current zone is RP4. It was rezoned to that some number of years ago for some other development that didn't happen. and they currently want to go to B4 so that they can relocate the Johnson City Eye Clinic and Surgery Center. This is a picture of the site from the road and also aerial. This is the current proposed concept plan associated with it. There may be a future subdivision that's not a part of the plan currently, but it would be the 60,000 square foot building for their practice. The project is consistent with the future land use map. There are a number of policies to support it. And the Tennessee Department of Health wants more medical care. Nobody came to either of the neighborhood meetings, and staff recommends approval, and the Planning Commission also recommended approval.
And there have been no changes to this since the first reading?
No changes.
Commissioner,
approval.
we have a motion to
Second.
approve and a second.
There's no public hearing.
What's that?
There's no public hearing on that?
Doesn't appear to be. Not public hearing on that one?
If nobody is here to speak publicly.
Well, it's
I-
not listed on the agenda for public hearing.
It isn't? I apologize. This is supposed to be the public hearing. We notified
Okay.
in the newspaper as public hearing.
Okay, well then if the newspaper said it, it's for
It
real.
must be true.
Hold on just a second. Slow our roll. What's that? They're all, okay, well, they're not all labeled as public hearing. Right, but like 6.5 says public hearing, and what, they should all say public hearing. All right, well then, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against ordinance 4823 number -22, if you'll approach the podium and give your name and address. Brian, do you want to say anything? Okay. All right, we'll close public hearing. Thank you for clarifying. We have a motion and a second. Is there further deliberation? We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler? Yes. Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is ordinance number 4824-22, second reading and public hearing.
Thank you.
Rezoning 1098, a different chick farm and orchard at 111 1112 Antioch Road. Sorry about that.
All right.
The applicants would like to rezone the property from R2 to A1 so that they can continue using the site for agriculture. It currently contains a small family-run farm. They specialize in peppers. While they can have an agricultural operation, the zone does restrict the square footage of accessory structures. So the rezone would allow them to build additional agricultural structures. The site has been used as agricultural since it has been a part of the city. It was annexed in '89. The proposed concept plan shows the existing structures in black outline, and the current proposal is to install a couple of more high tunnel greenhouses. And then they have future potential plans to maybe do a U-pick area and an outdoor picnic area, as well as possibly converting the existing garage into a produce stand. The project is consistent with the future land use map. And there are a number of policies that support agricultural uses in our city and the state of Tennessee.
Unless we deprive ourselves of the public hearing, are there questions for staff? There've not been changes since first reading. so
No changes.
Thank you. We'll open the floor for public comment on 4824-22. One at a time, please. Okay, we'll close public hearing.
Move for approval.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler? Yes. Mayor Wise?
Yes.
I thought y'all would bring us some peppers tonight, for sure, yeah.
It's December.
We're slightly out of season.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not the season.
They look great.
Then we-
Well, I'm
Next
excited
year.
about your U-Pick. That sounds exciting. Thank y'all.
You're almost there. You're almost there. Thank you.
Commission, the next order of business is item 6.3, ordinance number 4825-22. This is the second reading and public hearing. Rezoning number 1099 Clinchfield Echo Extended Stay Hotel at 1011 Clinchfield Street, sorry.
Good evening, Mayor Wise, Vice Mayor Fowler, Commissioners, Mrs. Ball. This is a public hearing, and there are no new updates from the first hearing.
Thank you.
This is Clinchfield Street is located approximately halfway between Food City at the corner of Sunset and North State of Franklin and the intersection of West Market and University Parkway. This is the site. That house that you see there is no longer there. That's been removed. This is a rezoning from R4 medium-density residential to MS1 for the purpose of the construction of an 124-room extended stay hotel. There are three applications actually that accompany this rezoning. The rezoning itself to rezone these lots here, a consolidation plat to combine these lots into this lot, which is already zoned MS1. And as you can see by the future land use map, this property is already or the future land use map designates this area should be zoned MS1. We've already covered the purpose for an extended stay hotel. One significant thing that will happen that will be good for the city, you can see that there's been some dumping or some homeless activity. And it didn't appear that there were any current homeless camps, but this is another example of an opportunity for infill development where we can clean up a piece of property with a good development. A concept plan is required for rezoning to MS1. This concept plan has all of the elements required for a concept plan. There's a buffer requirement here at the property line to the north, abutting the residential property. This is the hotel itself on the portion that is already zoned MS1. And you can see that the lots that are to be rezoned to MS1 will make up the ingress, egress, and the parking lot for the structure. The zoning matrix simply points out that motels and hotels are permitted uses within the MS1. And the Johnson City Regional Planning Commission recommended approval of this request in its November 8th meeting, and it was also approved by the Board of Commissioners at first reading.
Are there questions for staff? Public hearing, we'll open the floor for comment on 4825-22. We'll close the public hearing.
Move for approval.
We have a
Second.
motion. Second?
Second.
If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Item 6.4, ordinance number 4826, second reading, is the abandonment of a portion of right-of-way known as Clinchfield Street. Thank you, Will.
And I think I mentioned that there were three applications that were associated with the rezoning, and only actually mentioned two. This is the third one, which is an abandonment. It's necessary to abandon this portion of Clinchfield Street, which will be combined during the replat in order for the construction of the hotel and the parking lot. With typical with all right-of-way abandonments, we inquired from departments within the city and outside agencies if there were any issues with the abandonment. Bright Ridge and Comcast both have existing utilities that will be abandoned. There's also a city street light that will have to be relocated to where Clinchfield Street will come to an end if you decide to close the right-of-way. And there are easements of 15 feet in width required for maintenance of sewer line or water line if the right-of-way is abandoned.
Are there questions for staff? And is this also a public hearing?
It is a public
Yes,
hearing.
We'll open the floor for those wishing to speak on 4826-22. We'll close public hearing.
Move approval.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commission, the next order of business is item 6.5, which is ordinance number 4827-22. This is the second reading and public hearing for an ordinance to rezone approximately .3 acres located at 213 South Boone Street from B3 supporting central business to B2's central business district.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. This is second reading and public hearing. There are no changes to this item. Just to recap, this is a rezoning of approximately .3 acres over on South Boone Street from B3 to B2. And so this does not require a concept plan. That means that all uses within the B2 would be allowed. And just again, as a reminder from last time, that's actually fewer uses than in the B3. So they're actually losing the availability of some uses. The main reason behind this rezoning is for parking. In the B2 district, you actually lose your parking requirement. So as you can see where the star is right here, this property is just adjacent to our B2 Central Business District, and it really acts as a part of the Central Business District. And it is definitely a walkable distance, and so it kind of meets that intent of no parking requirements, because you can park at the Founders Lot or parallel park along Main Street and then walk over. So it's definitely within reason that it's a walkable venue. And for that reason, staff is recommending approval. There was a neighborhood meeting. Planning Commission also recommended approval. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Are there questions for Peyton? Questions for staff? Public hearing, we decided yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Public hearing. All those in favor, all those wishing to speak for or against 4827-22, if you'll approach the podium and give your name and address, please.
Hi, Michael Manzi, 487 Brinkley's Way, Johnson City, Tennessee. Thank you all for letting me speak. I'm just looking to take an eyesore and beautify it and have another place for the community to come and gather together and have a great experience. And so, as you know, this facility doesn't have a roof. It's an old 1930s. The last picture I have is in the 30s, a bottling company, and I look forward to revitalizing it.
You gonna put a restaurant? Is that?
That right now, yes, that's the plan.
Are there questions for the applicant? No, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? If not, we'll close public hearing.
Move for approval.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think there were 2 seconds. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Before, we're getting into the neighborhood zone, would there be objection to moving the presentation on the connected communities smart poles ahead in the agenda since they're here? We know if you'd like, we would welcome you to come up unless you want to sit through some of that, in which case we will gladly let you.
So this is just moving the,
And
under other,
7.2.
7.2, a presentation by TVA, Connect Communities, Johnson City Smart Poles in the agenda. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for a little shuffle in the agenda there. We always appreciate that. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Quillen. I'm the Regional Relations, Customer Relations Manager for TVA here in Johnson City. And just want to take a moment to come and say thank you for your partnership on the downtown smart poles projects that we've done in partnership with Bright Ridge. So part of my job, if you've ever met Jeff Dykes, if you know Jeff, part of my job is making sure he's first in everything. So I'm happy to report that this is the first Connected Communities project that we've done at TVA. It's the first smart pole project. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Georgia here in a minute to give you a little update on where it's at and some of the stuff that we did as part of this project. But just want to say thank you for your support. TVA's interested in innovation, different ways that we can innovate with the grid, and this is an excellent test example of what can be done with something that's out there in mass, lighting poles. There's approximately a gazillion of them out there, so We're interested in seeing what adding technology to this stuff that's already out there, what we can do with that, how we can benefit the grid and the community. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Georgia here, give you a little update on it.
Thanks, Chris. Georgia Carruthers, and I'm in Innovation and Research, and I'm the Connected Communities Lead. About a year and a half ago, we started this project. It fell through with another local power company and city. They couldn't align on what they wanted to do with smart poles. And so Jeff Dykes jumped in and said, yes, we can execute very quickly. And so we came, I think, to the commission, it's maybe July, August last year with a plan to work with Bright Ridge and the city to do the smart pole project. We worked really quickly to scope out with the city. Phil Pendoza, I thought he would be retired before we finished this project. He's still here. And Mark Eads and Phil. And we worked with the police and the city maintenance and scoped the project. And then we ordered parts. And then supply chain issues hit. And we were about a year waiting for the electronics modules for the lights. So fast forward a year, and the city and Bright Ridge have installed the poles. They're all up and running. So it was just under 50 poles that we touched, with about 6 or 7 new poles, and then the rest were modified. There's a weather station, a water level sensor to detect high creek rise. If you know, through Founders, there's unprotected creek. So we have visual and audible alarms, and then state-of-the-art for smart pole speakers throughout Founders Park and then in the kids' playground area of King Commons. So we're really excited to collaborate. It's been a great experience. On our part, it's about a $500,000 project. So TVA wants to invest in the community. We want to invest in technology. And we're glad that Hugh and Bright Ridge partnered with us. We're going to do a ribbon cutting for the project with the holiday market I guess it's next Saturday, December the 10th. So that's when we're going to have Santa cut the ribbon for the unveiling of the project. But thanks for approving the project, and thanks for the collaboration with the city and with Bright Ridge. We appreciate it. And I'm going to pass it over to Bonnie Donnelly.
So I'm here on behalf of Jeff Dykes. You're welcome.
Can you restate your name for Randy?
I apologize.
No, you're
sir.
fine.
I'm Bonnie Donnelly, and I work with Bright Ridge. Jeff sends his apologies. He couldn't make it tonight, but we were thrilled when TVA called and said, can we make something happen? And the one thing that Jeff has always said is we need to work with the city anytime we can. So we're thrilled. The lights came on, they look beautiful, and then the music came on, and it is crisp and clear. And I do want to recognize your staff that made a lot of the work. I know Georgia talked about too, but also JT McFadden kind of came in at the last minute, and Keisha helped us with the last minute, kind of the finishing the sprint to the end. And we're just thrilled to be in partnership between TVA, Bright Ridge, and the city of Johnson City. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question, if I could. Well, first of all, thank TVA and Bright Ridge and the city, all three, for, when three great entities get together, a lot of great things can happen. But these have been installed, so if we wanted to add additional poles at some point in time, for example, over in King Commons, there are no poles, but except in the children's play area. So they are set up so that we can add additional poles to that.
Yeah, and the city has already been.
If you'll approach the microphone, they start to wave at you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yes, and the city is already looking at options for further expansion. Don't know if that's budgeted yet, but they've got other plans in the work, and it can definitely grow. And that's really the testament to a good project.
Right.
It's a product that you want to continue, not just for the pilot. So there's energy savings, there's public safety. There's a lot of pedestrian counts, so you can kind of quantify the use of the park and the times and in the downtown business area. So there's a lot of cool things that go with just more than just energy savings and sound.
And will y'all be doing some analysis of data that you've collected?
Yes, we have hired Electric Power Research Institute. They're our research partner for utilities, so they will do the measurement and verification for a year. And so we'll have independent verification of the energy use data and savings, and Bright Ridge will also have that data too, but we've got independent verification. Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions? And we thank you all for being with us.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Commission, we will go back, is it okay to go back to item 6.6, which is ordinance number 4829-22, which is the second reading and public hearing. Says in error, this ordinance came before the commission for first reading on November 15th as ordinance number 4729-22. The correct ordinance is 4829-22. This is an ordinance to add Article 6.23 Rural Neighborhood RN to the zoning ordinance.
Good evening, Commissioners. Because this is a public hearing, I want to go over just a few things because there have been some changes. What we're looking at is adding 4 new districts to our residential zoning districts in order to replace some of our older districts that may not actually show or may not help guide us of where they need to be placed. We have found that with the increased development demand throughout the city, the future land use map and its kind of limited guidance, and the lack of description, we're trying to find something that matches with the efforts that we know are coming with the growth plan update. We talked about this in the first reading, but where this is coming from is from a transect model, and we're trying to apply it in these kind of residential zones. So anywhere between this rural zone and this general urban zone. And we're going to look, and I think these are we can go through the 4. I'm going to kind of breeze through those so that we can get to where we're going with between urban, suburban, rural, because these have not been developed yet, just as kind of only in concept. And the Planning Commission and the Legislative and Land Use Committee will begin working with that in the actually this month. But what we are talking about tonight is this rural neighborhood, and the intent behind it is that at certain places where there may be a crossroads or some type of commercial activity, that you could develop a little bit more densely than maybe in other parts of rural area. And so this would be something where you're maintaining the character by maybe adding buffers along the roadways, but it also has a traditional neighborhood element so that you are having like streets with sidewalks on both sides of the street that may not be rural in character. So the intent statement, which has been, that has not changed, so I'm just putting that up there. What is changing in the ordinance is that it's being grouped a little bit differently, and we're adding public parks and duplexes into this ordinance, one so that we can have some inclusionary zoning in those areas with duplexes. So in the proposed draft, which this part has not changed either, the minimum lot size would be 7,500 square feet with the minimum lot width of 65 feet, and then you can see the rest of the setbacks. Paying special attention to the side yard setbacks, because some of the issues that we've had with maybe some of the RP districts or the R2C is a smaller setback. This at least puts houses within 20 feet of each other if they were to maximize that. From the first reading, one of the questions was about sidewalks, and so to add some clarity to that, so just to make sure that we are saying that sidewalks would be on both sides of the street. And we're talking about the internal streets, not the external ones. We had a workshop, as you well know, the public may not, but we had a workshop today. And one of the things we talked about was duplexes. And from that workshop to take out that first line of 10%, because if you put them at corners, you're kind of naturally doing that. And then the other is that this came from the Planning Commission. This part has not changed. However, it is has been of some discussion about whether there should be a minimum width, what that width should be. Should it be on just the arterial and collector roads, or would it be on any road has also been brought up. So that's some things to consider through the public hearing and as it moves on into third reading. Should it move on, I get ahead of myself, but should it move on to the third reading? And I am here for questions, and this is a public hearing.
No.
Further questions for staff?
6.7.
This is-
We're on 6.6.
That's right.
Could we back up to the two slides, I believe? Right. So we'll have sidewalks on both sides of the street. The width of the streets in these neighborhoods, like on R2C, have been very small. This would require wider streets, is that correct?
So that actually doesn't come from this part of the ordinance, that comes from the subdivision ordinance.
Okay.
And we made changes about, I want to say 18 months ago, to widen the street and to add some kind of context-sensitive parameters around that. So that if you had smaller lots, you could not also have smaller streets. And to kind of make sure that that streetscape is matching up to with what the lots look like.
Right, okay, very good.
Are there other questions for staff?
We did talk about the 30 feet in the front being actually from the sidewalk to the house and not from the street, which gives you about 7 feet, so about 37 feet from the curb to the house. We talked about it in the workshop, but it isn't really clear on here, but that's even more from the street to the house.
Correct, and that's just how because we measure from the property line, which is at that back edge of the right-of-way.
Gotcha.
So all of our districts are that way, so that extra little feet.
Are there other questions for staff? This is public hearing, so unless you want to say something further, we'll open the floor. We'll open public hearing on ordinance 4829-22. Anyone wishing to speak? If you'll give your name and address, please.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Andrew Ferguson. I live at 284 Laurel Canyon, Johnson City. Thanks for giving a few moments to comment. I took some time to review this updated proposal, and I just wanted to share some general comments and concerns that I have with it. It's apparent there's been a bunch of annexation requests. There's a bunch of development proposals going on, hence all this conversation about creating these new zoning requirements. So I was encouraged when I found out that this was happening. A little bit discouraged when I read through it. But I want to share these comments. Some of the questions were answered here in the dialogue, and I'm appreciative of that. But I'm looking at this as these are rules and regulations that are going to drive what the future of this city looks like in the next 10 to 20 years, which is where I have a business, where I raise my kids, where my whole family lives. It's important to me. And the ramifications are big. They have impacts on schools, they have impacts on other infrastructure, and the macro national economics and the micro local economics have created this situation where we're a prime target for this development. It's only a matter of time until many other outside developers are beating on our doors trying to get in. And I think it's imperative that we get this right. Concern that I have is, why, as a community, why are we rushing the approval of one of these 4 zoning districts? Would it not make more sense to have a coordinated approach if we're redoing the whole thing, have all 4 of them developed in a uniform and coordinated collaborative way where we can use them efficiently? I understand why this one particular one is being rushed. So just a couple of specifics. I thought there was a lack of specific detail in some of this. Some of it may be referencing other documents or platforms that I'm not familiar with. One comment that I had was on the sidewalks. Is there a requirement for width for the sidewalks? You ever walk down a sidewalk with your kid and you both can't walk side by side? That's a real thing. Green space, there was a ton of deliberation about green space. Perhaps that's covered under the building parks link. I don't know, but not very many specifics there. Street width was something that I was very concerned with because, common sense says larger, more dense developments, you need larger streets because people park on the streets and you got to get ingress and egress access for emergency services. So for reference, there's been a lot of comparison to density of tree streets and some of these other developments. I went out and measured. So like Locust Street, West Maple Street, it's 24 foot wide. You got the Cedar Rock Village, which is an RP3 zoning, but the lot size of 0.2 acres is representative of what a lot size of this proposed density is. It's 19 feet, so that's a huge concern that I think needs to be addressed. And then some commentary about being able to use multiple zoning districts on one piece of land. A lot of these proposals are for large pieces of land, and coordination of that, in my opinion, I think would make sense. The main concern that I have is I think the language being used in the document is a little bit misleading, comparing the new zoning district to R2A and R2B, given the actual square footage size that's being proposed of 7,500 square foot, which is precisely in the middle of R2B and R2C, and more specifically, the front lot size of 65 foot, which is closer to the 60 foot of R2C versus the 75 foot of R2B. And knowing a little bit about development, those two metrics are really what drives the majority of the density in a development. So if a layman person that's not really been involved is reading that and they say, hey, it's like R2A, R2B, mathematically it doesn't really appear as such. So perhaps consideration for adjustment of that language. And then the time sensitivity piece of it, whom does it benefit the most of making a rush decision on this? Is it our community or is it a developer, whether it's local or outside? And that's something I'm concerned about. So thank you all very much for your time, and good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there others wishing to speak in favor or opposition of the item? If not, we'll close public hearing and turn to the commission for deliberation.
Can we comment on his?
You can deliberate on whatever you like.
I appreciate Andrew coming forth, and they were all questions that we asked today in our, I think we covered pretty much everything Andrew talked about in there. And part of it is if they go ahead with the project not being annexed, it's going to be smaller than what we're doing even. So we're trying to make it better by having it in the city. And all of those things, the width of the streets, we're making sure that people can pass, that fire trucks can get in there, those kind of things. The sidewalk are the 4 feet wide, not the 2 feet wide, and all of those things we discussed. And I don't know where in the paperwork that is, but I know we've talked about it and got our questions answered, so.
So it is, because trying to keep things separate, we haven't really brought up the open space ordinance, but that is coming into the Planning Commission on December 13th. So that we will begin discussion. So it's not particularly in one zoning district, but will be more citywide.
Gotcha.
And then we talked about street widths, when that comes from the street widths and sidewalks would come out of the subdivision ordinance as those projects are developed.
Gotcha.
Now,
The green space, open space is and there's another one coming up that we're making sure there's an amount of green space, open space with the development also.
but
So-
a couple of the questions I heard were about sidewalk width, which we have a spec.
We do.
And it is
4 feet.
It's 5 feet.
5 feet. Okay.
Sorry, even bigger.
And the width of the street, I think you said Locust Street was 28, is that 24? What's our spec for the street width? You mentioned a street width.
That doesn't actually apply to particular ordinance. That is more development specific.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that is in gray might be different than the one he's thinking about, or that I think you came with the one with Boone Station. So it would be more at the preliminary plat where that's going to be decided. The minimum, I believe now, is 24 for most of the things. We still have an option for the smaller street, but it would be with a particular style that would not be this.
And
I'm gonna defer.
who makes that decision, and in what context does somebody?
The Planning Commission.
Okay, so when they're considering the
Mm-hmm.
site plan,
they'll make consideration for the streets.
Does that
And the-
still flow up to us?
For the preliminary plat, no, it does not. It stays at the planning commission. But I will say that staff is all staff, not just planning staff, public works, water and sewer. We are all involved in those decisions, and so they are not made in a vacuum because they impact each of the way we deliver services to the city. So anytime that those decisions are presented to the planning commission, there is a lot of thought that goes into, well, how is that going to impact emergency services, trash pickup? Will this work for those items? Because of issues that we have seen in other streets.
I do have a question on the buffer.
Mm-hmm.
We have standards of buffers already in our, planning documents. Will the buffer required in the rural neighborhood fit into one of those kind of definitions, or will there be new standards for the rural neighborhood?
So that is actually something that we need to discuss, and as far as what would you like to see, because it can be. My suggestion would be a buffer. Let's say of going with what Wallace and Engineering was saying about a 4-to-1 slope and 40 feet. If there's existing vegetation, to use that vegetation. If you want to augment with a berm that kind of mimics the landscape, the buffer type probably fit with one of our existing buffer types, but that language would need to be put into the ordinance. And if that's the direction that you would like to go, I would love to put that in for you for third reading consideration.
And just as a frame of reference, there was mention of Cedar Rock Village. Do we know, because I've asked just as a frame of reference to compare, like what is a 7,500 square foot lot? At Cedar Rock Village, those are not 7,500 square
No,
foot
they are
lots
smaller.
by a pretty significant degree. And then the road width there,
I believe Anthony said this afternoon that it is 19 to 20 feet.
okay, so again, an appreciable difference in the road width at Cedar Rock Village and what we're talking about in these instances.
Yes, I mean, I don't want to step ahead to the next.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
We'll just dance back and forth between them.
I believe, so to quote what was said at the workshop today is that the Keebler annexation, sorry, wrong one. Keebler annexation would, I think the width is 28 feet.
Is there a minimum, I see Mr. Penzola sitting back there, is there a minimum width of a road that, I mean, we just can't go below to get a garbage truck down it?
The street profiles, there are cross sections in the subdivision regulations, and the ones that you're seeing out, like at the cottages at Greenwood on Willow Springs, those were built to the lane standard, which is a 40-foot right-of-way with about 19 feet of pavement. The next step up from that, and it kind of depends on number of trips per day, but you get into a local street configuration cross-section, which is what you're likely to see in the Keebler annexation. Right now, the minimum pavement width in the subdivision regulation is 21 to 25 feet, with 5 feet sidewalks on each side. Now, we are looking at drafting some revisions to the subdivision regulations that actually might eliminate the lane cross-section in the next month or so to ensure that all streets are a little bit wider.
But if you
in these
have those
developments.
more narrow streets, like out off Willow Springs, and people park on both sides of the street, then what's the width you have to take a fire engine through? Or
They need to be
garbage
about
truck?
28 probably.
Yeah, the 28, you figure a vehicle is about 7 to 8, and they're parking on both sides. So that's 16, and so you're left with about 12, so you can get an emergency vehicle through. The problem we've had is that we went overboard and made the streets too narrow. So not only, so we ran into the problem with even accessing because they're parking on both sides. Then they come back to us and say, take parking off the street, which is a problem. We had a problem with the radius at intersections that you couldn't move the vehicle around in an intersection. It was too tight. And then finally, there's the issue of what to do with at the end of a street on a cul-de-sac. And we are way overboard on how everybody's going to these T's. Well, people park in them, and then I can't get a trash truck through. I can't do anything. So these folks have been generous enough to listen to the concerns that we have over the width of streets. The only time I would go with a narrower street would be if they were substantially large lots, because nobody's going to park on the street and then walk 100 feet. So I don't have a problem with that. But these narrow ones, no, we got to stop that. So the minimum's going to be 29 back-to-back or 28 back-to-back.
Context is really important when it comes to streets, and that's conversations that as your development team we have and we continue to have.
It's very important, and I agree with Mr. Ferguson. We've got to get this right as we have more dense neighborhoods developing, smaller lots, smaller setbacks in the front, and so people don't have as large a driveways to even park in. So,
and as Phil mentioned, the cul-de-sacs and temporary turnarounds that you see out in the cottages at Greenwood, the adoption of Appendix D of the 2018 Fire Code have significantly increased the amount of pavement that are required for temporary turnarounds in cul-de-sacs to allow for ladder trucks to turn.
And then the other issue that we have, when you're talking smaller lots, then you're driving straight into a garage, right? So you got 20, 25 feet, you got to have something. Well, if you have a narrow street and the guy backs out and there's somebody parked across the street, you think you can get out? No. you in a parking lot, the lane widths are 24 feet in a parking lot at mall or wherever you want to be. And here we got something less than that. And so that didn't make any sense to us either, so a lot of problems.
Last question. Let's take out at Willow Springs. These aren't city streets, are they?
Which ones?
Like at the new development out that we're kind of referring to with the narrow streets. Are they city streets?
Well, we're talking about the
A zoning
zoning
district.
district. We're
I
not-
understand. I just have a side question.
I think they build them and then we
I
take
don't
them
know
over.
which subdivision.
Off Greenwood Drive.
Those are public streets.
Public.
They're public.
They're public streets. So my question was, can we restrict street side parking on one side or something?
We can,
Okay, thank you.
and we have.
Okay.
Okay. Are there other questions for staff?
Staff would appreciate direction on how you would like to move forward with that buffer so I can bring it back.
I think the recommendations of the, was it engineer?
Engineer,
that did
yes.
that? Yeah, I think we should,
Okay.
we
We
should
take-
go by what they said. I don't know if we need to.
I'll
addendum
I'll
the-
bring those forward, and then if we need to talk about them further at third reading, we can.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to make a comment of clarification. I know it was mentioned about, the perception of this being rushed. And I don't want to necessarily, although there is a development happening that this would apply to, the sense of urgency is not tied to the developer. It's tied to our region's need for housing at varying price levels because of the influx of people that have moved in here. And that's, at least for me, where our sense of urgency is in revisiting these.
And also to maybe say something about staff level, we are still kind of, or we have been a little bit understaffed, so it's what we can work through. We get to it as quickly as we can.
Well, and I may add to the conversation about rush, because I can certainly appreciate that sense. If we're rushing, it's to expand the array of tools staff has. Because if we didn't rush, there's still options that could be picked. They could be asking for R2C. They could be asking for the comparable
RP4.
county zone, the R.
The R3.
R3. And honestly, in a couple of instances, they probably could get them, and the lots are smaller, the setbacks are smaller, you don't have the sidewalk requirements if they're not in the city. And so, in a way, we're kind of trying to fast track a tool that gives a little better control, that gives us some options that aren't necessarily the zones that were developed for, infill on the tree streets. In my mind, there's a lot of arguments to be made about any of these kinds of conversations, and especially the next item on the agenda. Well, we can't do anything until we're ready. Well, that's kind of like saying we're not going to have kids until we're ready. I'd still be waiting to have kids if I were waiting to be ready. And so on some level, part of this is kind of needing to get as many options on the table soon enough that they can favorably affect what's going to happen, because something's going to happen whether we do this or not. And the couple of other lanes it could follow are not as good as what I think this affords us. And again, it's on second reading, so we will revisit this yet again. Are there other questions, or do we have a motion? We need a motion.
Aren't we still in?
Are we still in public hearing? No, I thought we
He
closed public
it.
hearing.
Yeah, I started talking after the
sorry.
closed.
Is there a motion on second reading for 482922?
Move approval on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve on second reading. If there's not further discussion, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commission, the next order of business is item 6.7, ordinance number 4828-22. This is the second reading, and there is no public hearing. This is to consider assigning the RN zoning district to approximately 115-acre territory located at north of Ford Creek, and RP3 district to approximately 20-acre territory south of Ford Creek associated with the voluntary Keebler annexation.
Hi, good evening, Commission. So I just want to start again with where we are in our timeline. I know annexations can be a little bit daunting, but tonight we are actually only discussing the zoning assignments. So throughout the annexation process, we kind of have two things running at the same time, and that's the annexation itself, so incorporating this into our city limits, and then the zoning assignment. So what are we going to zone this piece of land? So right now the annexation is kind of on hold, and that's the plan of services, how we're going to serve this. And really we're focusing our conversation tonight on the second reading of the zoning assignment. So the zoning assignment, as you can see here, is the proposed rural neighborhood. I know we all just alluded to this project a second ago, and Whitney just did a great presentation, going back over that rural neighborhood district. And then this side of the creek would be RP3, which you guys have seen before. Now I'm going to go back over this request. Again, the plan is to do 361 lot subdivision with 133 townhomes. That density sits at approximately 6 units an acre. The zoning district would actually allow up to 8.5, so they're sitting a little bit below that. The average lot size for this development would be approximately 7,800 square feet. The minimum front lot width would be 65, and the minimum side setbacks are 10 feet. And currently, as you see the development in front of you, it is proposing approximately 24% open space, and that is not including their stormwater ponds. Now, Mayor Wise, I know that you mentioned just a second ago about it's going to be something, and this is kind of a slide that explains that. So in the county right now, it's currently zoned A1, and you have a little bit of R1 zoning up along the front. But I went ahead and I decided, if they wanted to develop this in the county, what are some by right uses that they would not have to go through any sort of public processes to do? So I'm not going to read those right off to you guys, but you can see for yourselves right there. Those are some by right uses that you can do in the county, in this zoning district, that they don't have to do anything for but pull permits. And then I would also say that without sewer availability, they can still subdivide the lot, but they are limited to a half-acre lot size, and that's a little over 20,000 square feet. So this is a lot of numbers, and it's a pretty big chart in front of you, but I want you guys to focus on if this were not annexed, and they had to develop out in the county, and they wanted to seek a rezoning. These would be the different county zoning districts that they could potentially seek that rezoning for. And then I have our rural neighborhood at the end, just so you guys can kind of compare. So I know the rural neighborhood actually has a lot of similarities to that county R3, and so you guys can see for yourself how they compare. And I do want to mention too that if they were to rezone to the county R3, they would still need our sewer system to be able to achieve that density. And they would also, as you guys mentioned earlier, not be held to those city standards. So they would not have to require sidewalks, and they would be held to their road standards. So with the rural neighborhood, and assuming annexation, comes all of the city standards that would be required of this development. Staff is recommending approval of the zoning assignment of RN and the RP3 over on the other piece. The Planning Commission also recommended approval by a vote of 7-2, and I'm happy to dive deeper into anything, and I'm actually going to leave you guys on this slide right here.
I like them side by side like that.
Yeah,
Really helpful.
thank you for changing that for us.
Are there questions for staff? And it's worth noting there's some requirements in our zoning that aren't even contemplated in the county by way of height. And I believe there's another category. Weren't there 2 items? I know height was one of them.
There was a lot coverage as well.
Lot
But I believe
coverage.
that, I believe the county does have a lot coverage requirement.
I don't think it's,
But not the height
it's not the
requirement.
same. Well, I think our lot coverage requirement is less dense. I think they have to show more earth in our proposed zone than
Is it 30%?
ours is 30.
Ours is 30%.
But
I cannot speak to, I'm not positive what theirs is.
But, okay. But there is definitely a height question thing. Questions?
One of the metrics we haven't really gone through is the depth of the lot, so from front to back, what is that?
So that would be your, wait, when you say front, you mean like the entire lot?
Yeah, so it's 65 by
How deep?
65 by, this particular development is 120, I believe.
120, okay.
125.
25. I guess I could have done the math, yeah. Thanks.
Kind of like algebra. It's X.
I'll never use that.
Are there other questions for staff? Again, this is a question that's part of a bigger conversation. The bigger conversation is really ultimately a question of annexation, which is the question that'll be asked in 2 weeks.
Correct.
And all we're really saying is in the event that it's annexed, this is the zone that it would have applied to it.
Yes.
So is there a motion with that in mind, that what we're being asked is to assign
Well, I'll take a risk here and make a motion. Hoping for a second. I'll make a motion that we approve as recommended, the request on second reading.
There's a motion.
I will second it.
There is a second. Is there further deliberation?
We cannot approve this until we approve the rural neighborhood, though. So
That is
if we,
correct.
if we don't follow through with the rural neighborhood, then we'll have to start all over on this, correct?
That is correct, yes.
This is second reading on this. We'll have third reading and public input
At our
next
third.
time.
Yes,
At our
yes, so
third.
the public hearing for this zoning assignment will be
In the
at next
context
meeting.
of the annexation.
Yes.
Right.
So that will be a discussion that we have about both the annexation and the zoning assignment at the next commission meeting. As well as third reading for the rural neighborhood district itself.
Which, if that doesn't pass, we can't do this.
Correct. And assuming if that were to not pass, staff would recommend that you defer or table this item.
One of the things we did not talk about for rural neighborhood were all the other uses that could go on that property.
back to that slide?
Can we go back?
Can you go back to that slide? You had it up earlier, Peg.
You get an airstrip, a
Yeah, I thought
winery.
that, no, that was the county. That's what the county could put on their A1.
She's
Is that
asking
right?
for RN or whatever. Yeah.
R1, R2.
Which one?
You're asking
for
for our zone?
Yeah, for our.
For
our
the rural neighborhood district?
What else could be put there? So it's a concept.
Okay, I guess, so how that was modeled was is where that's really comes from the.
It's a loving move. Come on. So where that is modeled after is from the R districts. And so the only, so all of these uses already exist in R1, 2, A, B, and C. The only ones that have been added have been public parks and duplexes. So anything that is already there is there still. We didn't want to change any of that.
And then you had the county, the
ca-
A1.
The A1 is something different. This would be what's proposed in the RN.
Yeah.
And then the county's
It was
A1
like an
has.
airstrip of.
Yes, they have a different set of uses.
Crematorium,
Yes.
yeah, those kind of things. Okay, that's what I was asking for.
And look, you had a slide ready.
That's right, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Are we ready to call the roll?
Well, and I was also going to say, I think with this zoning proposal, based on the setbacks and yard requirements, height requirements, even though the lot size is the same as what the county's most dense level is, there's going to be more green space in these yards, and the houses will actually be smaller than any other proposal that could come before. I mean, if they built in the R3 county on the same lot size, they could have a bigger footprint of a house, meaning less space in between houses, less green space.
You want this one?
Yeah. So as far as like impact of such a large development, I think y'all have done a good job of kind of putting those constraints in there, along with some of these other pieces that are coming alongside it with the green space requirements and whatnot that we don't see elsewhere.
I think what comes about is that because there are two districts with this, there's the RP district as well as this new proposed RN district, that you're getting an open space benefit from the RP district that isn't currently in any of our other districts. And then with this, you're getting some different, from what the county would be some additional green space within the yards, in their own personal lots.
Two things?
Or just more houses.
And
Yeah.
or more houses.
What was the original proposal that they came with? The developer had how many houses in it? 500 houses?
I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I know that they dropped by
Over 100?
91.
almost 100. Yeah,
Almost
94.
100.
94
Yeah, with
lots
the new one.
less.
Okay. There was one other thing I was going to ask. Oh, on the next reading, if we were waiting for the open space for us to pass that before, to make sure there was open space in this, would we defer the third reading vote until we got the open space proposal passed?
That is something that you could do, yes. I will say too, for this annexation, it's a little bit interesting because their current request has this RP zoning district. And currently, the RP does actually have an open space requirement. As we've mentioned, the RP has that 15% requirement. So aside from the specific open space ordinance that we are proposing and working on, if they came in like this, they would still be held to the 15% here. But as far as the rural neighborhood goes, yes, in order to have to comply with the open space ordinance, that would have to be passed and in effect before this item submits their preliminary plat if annexed.
So that's something for us to think about.
I have a question. I'm going to surprise Mr. Witherspoon back there. Could you come and make a comment? Could you comment on the regional water sewer infrastructure that we have out in that area, and that even if it was not annexed into the city, how it would be treated if a development was there and the request came through?
You established a utility footprint out there in the 1970s with the regional sewer system. You made improvements to the regional sewer plant out there back in 2010. You have capacity at the plant. We have continued to try to upgrade the collection system, the sewer collection system that was put in 77 in a phased manner. John is working on delivery of the Boones Creek corridor, which has a number of lift stations. And this particular lift station that's downstream in the capacity that's downstream of that, if it wasn't for the development, we'd be touching it within 10 years is what we would predict. This is just going to accelerate that a little bit. But it's part of the overall plan as we're improving that entire collection system out there. Did that help?
Yeah, and I would imagine TDEC would want any development like this on a sewer system as opposed to septic tanks.
It is their preference to have developments like this on the sewer system to where their relationship is with the city and not individual property owners. That is a correct statement.
Okay, thank you.
Now we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Thank you, Commission. The next order of business is under other business, item 7.1, which is a presentation of water sewer capital projects. And this is a report to the board from Director Witherspoon and Capital Projects Director John Lane.
Get training hours on this?
Yeah, I think so. That's right.
Can we get our training hours for this?
We didn't turn it in ahead of time, but we can give you a repeat
I make a
performance
motion
at
we
a later
table
date.
this for 2 weeks.
Until we get approval for our
Take them out
hour
to lunch,
training.
stuff.
There
Maybe
you
you
go.
can see that.
Mayor, Commissioners, we thank you for the time tonight. We are sensitive that you've had a long day today. And so John will be doing the presentation on this, and then I'll make some wrap-up comments. Just to reintroduce Mr. Lane to the public, John's been with us about 9 years. He assumed the role of Assistant Director over Capital Project Delivery back in 2019. He and other staff members have done an excellent job. High workload, a lot of investment in the system that you have approved to be made, and he's going to go through this as quick as we can. It's not the story of the water drop, as the mayor likes to refer to it sometimes, but we'll be as brief as we can. John?
Thanks for having us tonight. So, like Tom said, we'll go through this pretty quickly. We know y'all had a lot going on today.
Promise.
Promise. Just 45 minutes. That's it. So y'all seen this before. So y'all seen this before. We have two different types of projects, debt-funded and rate-funded capital projects in our department. So when we go through these, you'll see kind of two different versions. Debt-funded, obviously, are the longer duration ones. We have our master plans as our roadmaps, and rate-funded, which are ones that are usually shorter duration, kind of repetitive categories for those types. And we do have a series of master plans. You kind of see the three that are bolded on this slide here. Those are ones that we're underway right now. So we're doing a water master plan update currently. The current one is from 2008, so we're finishing right now with the consultant a water master plan update. And then we're also working with two different consultants on both an AMI master plan, which is kind of smart metering, and SCADA master plan as well. And this is just a slide showing the different project signs for several projects ongoing right now. And I'll mention, feel free to stop me as I keep going through for any questions you have. So projects completed. I was here a year ago, November of last year, kind of doing a very similar presentation. So these are projects that have completed since that time frame. So Unicoi Spring House. So if you see the picture on the right, that was the original Unicoi Spring House from 1910. About 3 million gallons a day of water came into Johnson City, and it came in through a pipeline right into Pine Oaks Golf Course. So we awarded the project to Brazil Construction. We closed it out April of this year, about $68,000 under budget. And so here's a comparison. The picture, you see the structure on the right is the new spring house. So that's been completed. And we built it adjacent to the existing spring house, which you see. So we want to kind of keep the existing structure there. We'll go through processes in the next coming years to kind of do necessary improvements, but we thought as a historical structure to keep it there as well. And then here's a couple pictures on the interior of the new spring house itself. So it is operational now. Wastewater lift station phase out. So we have about 20% of our sewer lift stations you could phase out by gravity, and the benefit for that is you don't have the ongoing operations and maintenance for sending out staff to go check it once a week, once a month. So we finished a project on Carroll Creek Road. We had Merkle Brothers do this project for us. We closed it out June of this year. It was providing about 6,000 feet of gravity sewer on Carroll Creek from Terra Court to the railroad tunnel. So here's kind of a couple of pictures of that work. Came in about $68,000 under budget, and that one's complete now. West Hills tank repair and repainting. So this is the water tank you kind of see above the tree line at Indian Ridge Road and State of Franklin Road. It is complete. It was closed out by commission about $24,000 under budget July of this year. Obviously, the last time it was recoated was 1999. So most of these steel tanks, it's about a 20-year lifespan on the steel coatings. So this one is back in service. You kind of see the comparison here. So this picture on the left, if you're driving by, you might have seen what they call kind of the containment curtain. So when they're doing the sandblasting and taking the old coating off, kind of for debris and necessary dust, they kind of have that up. And the picture on the right is the final version of what it looks like now. 2009 Eastward Water Reinforcement Project. So this is kind of King Springs Road, Swadley Road, Plymouth, that area of Johnson City. We installed about 9,000 feet of new 12-inch water line. This was done by GRC Construction. That came in about $104,000 under budget, and that was just closed out just a month ago, November the 3rd. So here's kind of a few more pictures of this project, and they ended up doing a pretty extensive repaving of King Springs Road in that area as well after they finished the work. B2E sanitary sewer basin rehabilitation. This was on tonight's commission agenda for closeout. So we try to do a sewer rehab project about once a year or once every other year. This is kind of south of Cherokee Road. So it was Rolling Hills, Buffalo Road corridor of Johnson City. So we ended up lining about 14,000 feet of sewer line. So this is kind of what we call the CIPP, kind of the pipe within a pipe, cured in place lining. Came in just a little bit under $370,000 under budget. So the project went really well. So we're going to target our next one next year on a different area. Lower Brush Creek Interceptor Contract 1. I know y'all have heard about this project over the years. We went through multiple different iterations. Originally was all 21,000 feet, and then we broke it up into 2 contracts. Contract 1, which was for the first 13,000 feet of the project, it is now, all the main line is complete. We're doing final restoration activities, final cleanup with the contractor. So probably sometime in the first quarter of next year, in calendar year 2023, we'll bring that before commission for approval. It was about $13 million on bid opening. We're trending about $600,000 under budget. So it went really well. This is our largest pipeline in our system. So kind of compared to these other projects, much bigger. So a 42-inch pipeline is what's been going in. This is replacing the existing line that catches the ETSU, VA, Johnson Med Center and Flow that's from the 50s. So here's kind of just that breakdown in where the plan is, where Contract 1 ended, and kind of where Contract 2 ends as well. And here's just a few pictures of the work itself. So very, very labor intensive, large equipment, and this contractor's from Nashville.
It's a big pipe. Was that
42-inch PVC, yeah. So this is our largest pipe in our system on the sanitary sewer side. And so here's just also crossing. This is actually crossing the raw water line to the water plant. So it was significant effort when they did this. EDA grant Brush Creek blower and electrical replacement. This project is all the construction's now been completed. It included about a $1.5 million EDA grant. We'll have it for commission for closeout in the next couple of weeks. If you look at the picture on the left, that's the original blowers. So those 4 blowers there were from the 1970s and 1980s. The picture on the right is the 4 new blowers that came from Belgium. Obviously through supply chain, they had to make its way through customs and finally got here. But we're already showing significant cost savings. We're kind of, just for the change in material or change in equipment and other improvements from this project, we're trending about $80,000 to $100,000 in energy savings a year just from these changes that we've done here. So this project included a re-roofing of the building. There's 30-inch ductile iron piping out to the basins. So that picture on the left is the new aeration blower piping that goes out to those aeration basins. And the picture on the right is actually the piping that was installed. They had to take the existing roof structure off, install the discharge piping, and then they built a new steel deck and a new roof above that. So that's all been completed now. And like I said, the project is in final closeout now, so probably one of the meetings in January, February will be for closeout for this one. And then projects under delivery. This is contract 2, so we talked about how contract 1 was nearly complete. Contract 2 is the last 7,000 feet of the Brush Creek Interceptor project. It's the same contractor, but it's ductile iron pipe instead of PVC, just how it was bid. They've installed, actually, as of this morning, 3,000 feet, so they're right around 40% of contract 2 is done. So that'll put them finishing out approximately next summer. Summer of next year, we'll be completely done with this one. And then here's just a few pictures. They actually had to do a tunnel under Smith Street, kind of near East Fairview, 60-inch steel casing, so pretty significant effort when they did that. But this project does also have $7.8 million of ARPA funding, so we've already been approved by the state of Tennessee for using that grant money for this project. Water Sewer Service Center, and obviously Randy and Brian behind me have had a significant role in this one as well. So kind of this picture on the right is where we purchased the property at 2250 Eddie Williams Road. You kind of see where it is compared to our water treatment plant and our Brush Creek wastewater treatment plant. I've kind of just a few pictures. So this was the original rendering of what the main building would look like. And the picture at the bottom is kind of a bird's eye view of what the complex was going to look like on the design phase. This is a drone video I had completed 2 weeks ago. So it's making significant progress. First layer of pavement's been put down. The building to the right is the main building, so it is fully under roof. They're doing final finish work now and potentially starting furniture installation next week. So looking like probably into the calendar year to have that building completed. The other adjacent buildings, you kind of see warehouse at the top of the page, will all kind of finish up in January. So we're looking like a spring of 2023 move-in date for us on this complex.
John, is there a place where equipment will be stored there that's undercover?
Yes, ma'am. So at the very top, so this is the warehouse structure here. There's actually going to be a fence. This is what we're going to be calling our lay-down area. Right off the edge of the page, there actually is a covered storage space as well here. So, and then off the page that you can't see it here, there's actually another seasonal storage building for our big equipment. So when we had our Thanksgiving lunch a few weeks ago, we had some equipment parked at the Pierce building. That equipment will actually go under roof in a new structure here. So. And then here's kind of a picture just from last week of what the main building is looking like now. And then here's a picture of the new warehouse. It's significantly larger than our existing warehouse. The racks actually are all installed inside the building as well. And then building 3 and building 4. Building 3 is kind of our new machine shop and repair garage. And building 4 is where we'll park that large equipment in here. So it's actually double-sided, so there's overhead doors on both sides for that equipment to pull through. I'll just kind of speak on the water and sewer side for West Walnut Street. So the total project obviously started September of last year. It's about 13,000 feet of water line replacement and 10,000 feet of sewer line replacement. To date, all the water line replacement east of Firehouse, so east of West Watauga Avenue, is complete. That kind of puts us about 60% of the total water line footage in the project's been completed. This was a picture of the water line going in on Ash Street. And then on the sewer side, all the sewer line work also east of Firehouse has been completed until they moved to phase 2 east or west of Firehouse. So this was actually some pictures of the new sewer line going in on West Watauga Avenue, very close to Firehouse. So this is as it's moving towards State of Franklin Road right here. College Heights tank repair and repainting. So this is the tank you kind of see above ETSU campus. You might even see this kind of containment curtain that's been up the last few weeks. This one's underway right now. It's about a 100,000 gallon water tank. Contractor's doing well. They probably will be done, I'd say, early calendar year 2023, so early next year. But so far so good. This was last recoated in 2001. So like I said, about 20 years is the normal lifespan for this steel recoating, repainting. So this one was due. And then galvanized replacement, we're working with Thomas Construction. They just started just on Halloween. So they're on East Millard and East Myrtle. They've installed about 500 feet so far, of about 6,900 feet. Project's going well, but they'll probably finish sometime late spring next year, start to summer next year. And then Washington County Waterline Extensions Project, I know y'all have heard about this one several times. We're kind of working in coordination with Washington County on 6 waterline extensions. It's been funded through the county, so we're working with coordination with them. You kind of see the list of the roads there as well. Contract has been awarded. It was awarded to Horizon Underground at the last commission meeting, and so we're kind of working right now on contract documents, getting those contracts signed with the contractor. And then Brush Creek Lab, building and architectural improvements. This project is out to bid right now. So it's some interior and exterior renovations to our lab building at Brush Creek, and then some exterior renovations to 2 other buildings on site. So we'll open bids later this month, and they'll probably be sometime in the month of January for a bid award for approval. And wastewater lift station phase out. This is kind of our next sewer lift station area. We're going to do about 4,000 feet of gravity line to serve a few properties in the city limits that are unserved right now by sewer. We hope to have that one bid out later this year. And then a few projects to be advertised next year in calendar year 2023. Sinking Creek Sewer Pump Station. We'll hope to have this one advertised potentially in January, February of next year for extensive upgrades for this existing pump station. We're in final design now, and this one does have a $2 million EDA grant involved. Galvanized replacement, this will kind of be our target area for next year. It's kind of the Oak Grove area of Johnson City. You kind of see the road names there, but potentially have that one advertised spring to summer of next year. And then Tom kind of mentioned growth in the regional system. There's these next 3 slides are the projects that we have underway now. They're all outlined for sewer growth in the regional system. So kind of the Boones Creek corridor of Johnson City out that direction. So C Sewer Pump Station is kind of an upgrade of existing sewer pump station from the 1970s. So we're in final design for that one right now. The B Sewer Force Main project is also kind of out in the Boones Creek area. So it begins with a new 30-inch pressurized force main at Boone Lake, near Boone Lake at B Sewer Pump Station, and goes near Honecker Court. So that one, we're in the easement acquisition process for this project now. So hopefully have it advertised potentially next fall. And then Lower Boones Creek Interceptor, same thing. So this is kind of replacing an old 10-inch sewer line that starts at the Boones Creek interchange at exit 17. And then for any growth from that point upstream, it'll then, with the new 24-inch sewer line all the way to B Sewer Pump Station. And then we're also working with TDOT on 2 different projects. State Route 75 is kind of out near Tri-Cities Airport, where water and sewer replacements near there. And then State Route 107, it's just a bridge replacement, so it's just a water line replacement there only. And then kind of just to highlight here, this has got kind of a combination of the Knob Creek widening plus Mountain View and Oakland widenings, but kind of just for your reference, we are working with Public Works on that as well, because there will be some extensive water and sewer upgrades as part of those projects as well. And then just kind of, we went through most of these, but there are other things as part of our capital improvements plan that we kind of list. And here's kind of a few of them. Obviously, the main one here to mention, we are going to have our crews installing a 16-inch water line kind of near Bright Ridge out to the railroad trestle in the next couple of weeks for kind of additional capacity out into our what we call our 1937 water pressure zone, which is the Ridges, Garland Farms, that side of town. And then here's just kind of a few projects on the sewer side of things, which we did talk about this earlier tonight, but H Sewer Lift Station was the one Tom referenced as the one that would be downstream of the Keebler annexation. We had a study completed there. And then I mentioned before about AMI phasing and SCADA water master plan. Both of those are underway with the consultant. And then force account is basically just our own internal staff, our own water and sewer construction crews. We just want to show a couple of pictures of the work they've done as well. So on this list, WR is water line replacement, WE is water line extension, SE is sewer extension, and SR is sewer line replacement. So these are kind of a list of road names that our crews have completed since November of last year. And here's kind of just a few pictures of what our crews have done. The picture on the right is significant bypass setup. They actually cleaned out an oxidation ditch at the Knob Creek plant. That was, went into service in the mid-'80s and never been actually, had been drained and gone through. So that extensive work that they did there, that's just a few weeks ago. And then in progress or staging, here's just kind of a few that they have listed that they have planned to start in the next couple weeks. That's it. Any questions? It wasn't 45 minutes.
Very
Good job.
impressive, thank you.
Great work.
So you left me extra time to talk.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you. Let me just wrap up. And you heard what the projects were, and let me just echo what was important. You got 24 active projects in some form of delivery, about $94 million. That's about $60 million under construction, and that's all investments this board, previous boards have voted in the utility system. As John mentioned, all of the projects, a couple of key projects. Brush Creek Interceptor. Remember the problem we had, the board, we already had it in the funding conveyor belt. We already had it in the design conveyor belt. If we had not taken those steps, upstream of that was downtown, ETSU, VA, Medical Center, MedTech campus. We avoided some significant issues by addressing that problem before it got worse. And since we've gotten contract one in, no problem since contract one went into operation. So I think the city established credibility with the state. Walnut Street utility replacements. If Mr. Lane had not been on staff, he deserves a tremendous amount of credit, not only during the construction phase of it, but the amount of time that we put in on reviewing plans, making sure that what went into the contract was buildable. And there was a lot of work, and I can't tell you how much work he put in on that. Deserves a tremendous amount of credit for the success on the utility side out there. Service center construction, we talked about it. One thing that I would mention to you that he had on the slide, it probably didn't get the coverage. We're in the process of redoing our 20-year water master plan, which says this is how we get water out of the river. These are the improvements we need to make to service the four-county service area. Benji Whitehead's riding herd over that. We expect to have that done sometime after the first of the year, at least the first pass on that. So his oversight on the capital and leadership on the capital side, if you go back to about 2008, 2010, we've had 54 projects delivered, $154 million worth of work. 93% have been delivered at or below the approved amount. And there's a secret to the sauce.
It's called sandbagging.
No. It's a lot of work on the front end of the projects before they hit the street, and a lot of good review before we get a contractor on board. And so, anyway, so that's the end of the presentation. So I didn't use up all the 45 minutes.
job.
Very good, thank you.
Thank
Great
you
job.
all. I would just take a minute to echo the nerd part of the engineering part of me. Absolutely, it is outstanding. Having worked in other places, the delivery of the capital projects here have been incredible. And I think what I heard Tom say is it's your leadership, John. So thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. Anything
That's all I
further?
have tonight. Thank you.
I will remind everyone that Monday at 4 p.m., this coming Monday, the 5th, thank you for reminding me, we will have the swearing in of the newly or re-elected commissioners and school board. That's the swearing in. The swearing at will occur on December the 15th. When we have third reading. And
So with that, all are invited. That'll be this coming Monday. We also have a Christmas parade occurring this Saturday, and it'll take a different route because John has Walnut Street all torn up. And so the Christmas parade will follow from its usual starting place at ETSU, but it'll follow State of Franklin as opposed to West Walnut Street, and then otherwise pretty well find its way back to something close to its normal route. And that starts at 10 o'clock, 10:30, some 10, you depend on where you are on the route. It'll start somewhere in there. So those are things that are coming up. I'll turn to the others on the commission if there are things from committees they serve on or other community points of interest. Commissioner Hunter.
I don't have anything to add. I think there are a few other events, but Commissioner Brock probably can hit on them.
Yeah, a lot of things going on. Commission and staff, Brian, I see you sitting back there, and Randy, we will be doing some open house touring of the new spay neuter clinic that is set to open. They're going through training and of all the staff, and so that is on the 13th. You all should have received an invitation to that, and I think it's about 6 o'clock. It's just drop by, and we have some dog biscuits for you, and we'll.
I love dog biscuits.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
4 to 6.
We'll take you on a tour. 4 to, no, that's, anyway.
Okay,
Yeah, I
sorry,
think
6,
o'clock.
somewhere in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
neighborhood.
for sure. But that's all. Thanks.
Vice Mayor? Nothing from me. Commissioner?
Yeah, I'd like to announce that city, along with the visitor center, landed the pickleball tournament taking place next April. That'll be an exciting event. It's a growing sport. I do highly encourage that you get involved, get you a racket, get your family and friends out. It's really fun activity that your friends and family and loved ones would love to be a part of.
Thank you. So that is all I have. If there's nothing further, this meeting will stand adjourned.
So I did bring this up.
It's
but
8:02.